modeling. The Deontic process indicates Deontic chain and Deontic relation in a transaction. In other words, Deontic process indicates a set of Deontic effects that people want to achieve in the transaction. For instance, in a sale transaction, the main purpose is to ensure that the seller delivers goods and the buyer pays. These are the kinds of the main obligations of the transaction. So the Deontic process will have to explicate these kinds of underlying Deontic relation. Actually, very recently, in the year 2004, the International Electrotechnical Commission identified that legal implication is an important aspect for the electronic transformation of trade procedure. And as they say, under the legal implication vary in different jurisdictions, it should be possible, and is it possible here? It should be possible to model the concepts such as right, obligation, permission, and prohibition. And what I do, and I personally try to do, is to realize this kind of thing, to realize their vision in a working system. So the main purpose of the procedure is to prevent the parties against opportunistic behavior by the counterparty involved in the trading. For instance, the main purpose of documentary credit procedure is to ensure that the seller fulfills his obligation of delivery and the buyer fulfills his obligation of payment. So these are the reasons why numerous international trade procedures like documentary credit, escrow procedure, documentary collection procedure has been developed. These procedures have been developed centuries, like documentary credit has been evolved for the periods over 200 years for the main purpose is to protect the trading party against potential opportunistic behavior. The kinds of fraud we look at here is the Deontic fraud. We define the Deontic fraud as a deviation from a Deontic relation. And when a party tries to deceive others about such deviation in order to secure his own interest. For instance, when a party enters into a contract, he may later find that it is in his own interest to deviate from the contractual obligation. That is the kind that he breaks the contract. But if he deceives the other about such deviation in order to secure for his own interest, then it becomes a Deontic fraud.
Just a clarification comment.
Yeah.
That the procedures are in some sense covering the case where you don't have trust. If two people are trading and they know each other very well, you don't need much procedure. But in the case of international trades where the people are, it's at so-called arm's length, they don't have any pre-established trading relationship, then so this is the extreme case of distrust essentially, and the procedures are keeping everybody honest.
Yeah. In the case of international trade, for instance, the trader located in different jurisdictions, different country, different culture, different area, for instance. So the thing is here is that they not trust each other, depend on many different factors, depend on the culture factor, the legal factor, and so forth. The thing is how to design a procedure to facilitate trade or to facilitate interorganizational transactions in this context, in the context of distrust among different parties involved in the transaction.
Hey, Vu, is it still fraud to have a right but without evidence?
Yes, sure. For instance, there may certain reason a person still has the right to possession of goods, but he lost the evidence, he lost the bill of lading. In the case here, we have a right, but sometimes we lost the evidence. You see, you have the right to ride on the highway, but you lost your driving license in certain day.
Is it still fraud though? You still have that right.
It's a potential
No,
situation.
I say it's the potential.
Okay.
It's the potential.
Okay.
So right.
There are certain ways there
Then
may
you are
lead to
vulnerable
fraud.
to be defrauded if you don't have
Right,
evidence.
right. And this will happen because there is a chain in Deontic reality and documentary reality do not match with each other. You lost the driving license, however, the right is still there. or your right has been revoked, but by some way you have a copy of the driving license. In that case, there are a mismatch between the chain in deontic reality and documentary reality. So I define control here. The term of control used in this dissertation is defined as mechanism that the trading party used to limit the risk of deontic fraud. The deontic fraud that had been defined in the previous slide. And in inter-organizational procedure, because deontic relations are mostly represented in form of document in inter-organizational business. Deontic relations are mostly represented in form of document. Thus, the inconsistency between deontic relation and documentary reality usually happen by the mismatch between the deontic relation and its documentary evidence. So the control mechanism used to prevent the potential deontic fraud is usually via documentary procedure. And for this reason, various inter-organizational procedure like the documentary collection, escrow, or documentary credit has been developed. In the documentary procedure, control usually in form of the checking activity to ensure that certain event happen or not. Evidentiary activity, like sending evidence back and forth among the different parties, or the commitment from the trusted third party. When the two parties do not trust each other, they need to get the bank involved or some of the famous institutions involved in order to secure this transaction. A control requirement is defined as the desired goal to be achieved by a control. The control requirement here in this dissertation will be specified formally. So the control requirement can be defined as a formal specification of a desired goal to be achieved by a control. So a control requirement will be represented as a control obligation. It's slightly different with the contractual obligation. In the contractual setting, when a party has an obligation, there are some other counterparty has a right. So if this party violates the obligation, the counterparty will sanction or punish or do whatever legal activity that are allowed by the legal system. But the control obligation here